Hello, this is Wahkeena Sitka, coming to you for another video for the Vocal Alchemy series. This video is about cultivating silence. As a vocalist, you might not think that silence is important to becoming a vocalist or expanding your vocal power, but in my opinion, silence is the most important thing to cultivate in order to become a more empowered vocalist, as well as just to become more empowered in the way that you express yourself. Why? You might be asking, why is silence necessary in order to become more empowered with your voice? Well, silence is where our inspiration comes from. And silence is the resting point within which our minds return to a state of knowing, relaxation, and that spiritual inspiration from which all songs, ideas, thought forms, and perceptions on an intuitive level come from. And so I feel that, being able to use your voice, or the breathwork practices, all of that's great and important in order to become an empowered vocalist. However, if you cannot cultivate silence within yourself, then the actual vitality, the actual energy, the actual power that comes through your voice, it's not there. It's empty. This is why in my Keys of Vocal Alchemy, when I wrote my Keys of Vocal Alchemy, the very first thing that came to my mind is about cultivating silence. And in my vocal alchemy circles, I always begin every circle with silence, and end every circle in silence as well. There is a very important reason to this. And it is because most of the time in our culture, we have not learned how to be in balance in the way in which we communicate. What do I mean by that? Over the years, I have experienced innumerable people who speak and talk at me, and sometimes, I do it myself. It's an unconscious thing where we just start talking at each other really instantaneously, rapid fire, without really thinking about what we're saying, we're not really feeling into the other person or what's actually appropriate for the moment, and it gets to a point in which our own energy begins to drain, and we begin to drain the other person's energy. And over the years, I have really cultivated a lot of listening. And I really feel that in order to be a good speaker, you have to be a good listener. And in order to be a good vocalist, you need to be a good practitioner of silence, because you can't always be sounding. You can't always be speaking. You can't always be expressing. You have to rest. You have to arrive in stillness. There are times in which you express, you're giving, you're creating, you're doing, you're giving, and then there are times in which you can't, because there's nothing left to give. There's nothing left to express. There's nothing left to do, because you're exhausted, you've depleted yourself, and you've drained everybody else. I know this from my own personal experience. This is huge. And so it is within silence that intuition arises. And using the voice intuitively is where creativity comes from. And the creative energy that emerges through the voice is what helps unlock and unleash the power of our life force and our vitality within our body, within our being, as we use our voice. Whether or not we are speaking words, whether or not we are singing a singer-songwriter song, whether or not you're singing a pop song, whether or not you're singing a jazz song, or whether or not you're just singing an indigenous chant, it doesn't matter. It is that core level of consciousness and creativity that gives power to what is being created and expressed. And more importantly than that, silence is what nourishes us, feeds us, sustains us, and gives us that feeling of balance and equanimity. In our culture especially, practicing silence is an incredibly difficult thing to attain, because we as a culture are so focused on doing, talking, just we're oversaturated. And I feel that we don't really know, as a general cultural trend, how to just relax and arrive and be fully present and be in the body and know and express ourselves from the truth of our inner knowing, the well of our life force knowing. Which is why in vocal alchemy, I will constantly want to bring you back to this. Because this is where the songs come from, right here. Songs come from silence.